Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, my fellow YouTubers. Welcome to another edition of Airy Sky Radio Lee's video blog. I'm Krabby McCoffee, also known as San Juan Island Prepper. So I just came across a report that came over my news feed, and I wanted to share it with you. It basically says Putin aiming to divide the U.S. public opinion with nuclear treaty pullout. So it says Vladimir Putin threatened to suspend Russian participation in New START, last remaining nuclear arms treaties with the U.S., representing a blatant attempt to divide American opinion over the war in Ukraine by raising the specter of nuclear Armageddon. Expert and policymakers warned on Tuesday. Well, maybe. But then again, maybe not. You see, as an American, most Americans, most Europeans, most Asians don't want nuclear Armageddon. They want to live in peace. And so, I'm going to tell you my opinion as we go through this report. Putin announced his intention to halt participation in the agreement towards the end of belligerent 100-minute speech. Belligerent? I thought it was well put. In which he charged the U.S. and Western's power to try and inflict strategic defeat. Well, this report specifically says what a strategic defeat is, which means NATO is trying to crush Russia. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe they're just trying to defend Ukraine because Ukraine's part of the European Union or going into the European Union. Who knows, right? On Russia, his fiery rhetoric prompted instant reaction across the political spectrum in Washington. Oh, I just love how they say Washington because, frankly, I live in Washington State, so they should maybe change it to the District of Columbia. Fiona Hill, a senior fellow at the Brookings Institute, was a Russian specialist at the White House National Security Council from 2017 to 2019 under the Trump administration. Told The Guardian that Putin was playing the rifts in the U.S. They're strategic to increase political discord and attempt to embolden calls for end-to-use U.S. support for Ukraine. Well, let's talk about that for a minute. In support. That could be the 70 million Trumpers. Okay, I'm not a Trumper myself. I'm not affiliated with any party. But I'm just going to use those words for poops and giggles today. The 70 million woke Trumpers, dissenters, Lakers, they all don't support the war. I don't support it. And the reason I don't support it is because I don't understand why we're there in the first place. Maybe I'm just stupid. It's playing all those people who want Ukraine to surrender and capitulate to avoid massive nuclear exchange and the World War III, a kind of nuclear Armageddon. Well, I don't want our nuclear Armageddon. I don't want World War III. I surely think the only one that wants World War III is the war machine. Now, the question is, what contract in the United States of America controls the mining contracts for the uranium and contracts the country's contractor who makes the nuclear weapons? Someone's got to make it. I mean, does the U.S. own the nuclear enriched uranium, or do they buy it from a miner? Does the country spend money for a special plant to make the uranium, plutonium enriched uranium to make the bombs and missiles? Who knows? But I don't support World War III, and I surely know H doesn't support World War III or nuclear Armageddon. We're both scared. Thomas Graham, Russia director with George W. Bush National Security Council, agreed part of Putin's calculation was to provoke certain circles in the U.S. to wonder whether the risk of supporting Ukraine was worth it. Yeah, mostly he's trying to drum up more support for Donald Trump, most likely. But then again, it could be Republicans. But think about it. Republicans like Lindsey Graham want to send F-16 Falcons. It tells you right there what you need to know. Some people, as I said to H, if our beloved House of Representatives and Republicans control the purse string, they should tell Biden no. Get it done and over with. Graham, a distinguished fellow at the Council on Foreign Relations, said, given how politicized Washington has become, there will be elements of the Republican Party who will play this up as a way of casting aspirations on Biden's foreign policy. Yeah, more likely. Marjorie Taylor Greene. I don't like her, but I will give her kudos. Because, well, Graham's prediction appeared to have been fulfilled after Putin made his threat. Prominent right-wing Republicans heavily criticized Joe Biden's surprise visit to Kyiv. They did. They said he should be talking about the train derailment in Ohio over going to Ukraine. Well, you know, accusing him of devoting more care to Ukraine than his own people. That is, again, a division, but a true division. Think about it. I'm a prepper. You guys are all preppers. But to understand this is what he's trying to do. He's trying to change the narrative. Remember what Biden said? The American people stand by Ukraine. He must be talking about the anal-dwelling crap monkey or butt monkey that's living in his butt, because frankly, I don't support it. Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, who's eyeing a 2024 presidential run, told Fox News that an open-ended blank check for Ukraine is unacceptable. It is, because what we just gave $500 million of our taxpayers' money again, and we don't get a say in it. That is unacceptable. He compared Biden's staunch support for Ukraine unfavorable with his approach to immigration at the Mexican border. Again, I agree with Ron DeSantis. I have a friend who's trying to legally marry a Belizean guy, and they're making her wait 3 years. But someone comes in for a political asylum, and they rubber stamp them and give them cash money out of our taxpayer money. And she's still waiting another 3 years for ICE to get off their butts to do something. And many Americans are thinking to ourselves, okay, he's very concerned about those borders halfway around the world, but he's not done anything to secure our own borders at home. I've seen a lot of crap with the welfare office and illegals and, what we're not talking about, though. We're talking about this. New START was negotiated under the Obama presidency in 2010 and renewed for 5 years in February 2021. It was designed to ensure strategic stability between the U.S. and Russia, which holds 90% of the world's total number of nuclear warheads. The practical implication of Putin's threatened suspensions are likely to be debated in Washington over the coming weeks. Yeah, and yet they won't raise the frickin' debt ceiling. It is unlikely the short-term change much on the ground. Graham pointed out, given that the treaty has already begun to unravel before the Russian president's speech. Last month, the State Department accused Russia of breaking its monitoring obligation by refusing to allow U.S. inspectors into its nuclear weapons facilities. Okay. Graham warned that it will now be impossible to replace the New START once the treaty expires in February 2026. We are looking at final demise of the arms control architect that was built up starting in 1960, based largely on bilateral relations between the U.S. and Soviet Union, and then Russia. Yeah, during President, I believe it was Nixon's time, the SALT Treaty and SALT II Treaty. We will have a much more difficult, complex environment to deal with. Yeah, well, Russian experts expressed relief that the Kremlin has stopped short of withdrawing from the treaty altogether. This does not signify that Putin is planning to use nuclear weapons on Ukraine. Mama Peewee says they are. Anytime soon, said Susanna Loftus, a research fellow at Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft. But Loftus added that the longer-term prospect of nuclear stability were ominous. She said, we're losing the progress we've made on non-proliferation even during the Cold War. Putin audacious moves, but the ball back in Washington's court. An advocacy group pressing for nuclear threat reduction urged the Biden administration to show restraint even in the face of the latest provocation. Yeah, by just writing a rubber check and telling all the Americans in the United States support Ukraine. I support H being herself. I don't support Ukraine. The goal here, as we see it, is to get Russia back into the New START because the treaty serves the national interests of both countries, said Emma Belcher, president of the Plowshare Fund, a Washington, San Francisco-based funding organization devoted to reducing nuclear risk. Belcher praised the way that Biden had so far refused to rise to Putin's bait and switch. Not that I know of, but then again, I saw his speech. He was basically egging Russia completely on. To mark the first anniversary of the invasion of Ukraine and wars on Tuesday, the U.S. president pointedly declined to refer to Russian counterparts' threat to suspend participation. Well, that's true. He didn't say anything about it, but he did say other things that looked like he was thumbing his nose at President Putin and President Putin's policies. Now, such restraint should come to the Biden administration response, Belcher says. What the U.S. should avoid is to use Putin's statement to justify increasing its own nuclear arsenal. That would merely move back the clock. Well, maybe this is what they wanted. Both countries now can manufacture as much arms as they want. Someone's fitting the bill. Christopher Shivas, a senior fellow with the Carnegie Endowment of International Peace, gave a more somber assessment of the impact of U.S. policy. Putin's move would make it more difficult for the U.S. to monitor Russia's nuclear forces and how they were deployed. That's funny. Apparently, the U.S. claims we have the best satellites in the world. So, this guy here must be full of crap. And growing lack of clarity about Russia's nuclear action would turn darken the mood in Washington. Why? We have the most advanced CIA, apparently. We can spy on anyone, supposedly. Shiva said it will likely drive Washington towards a more conservative, more hawkish approach to the U.S.-owned nuclear arsenal, just to err on the safe side. Why? The military doesn't tell us anything. If they made another 50,000, 100,000, 1 million nukes, put them in new silos, Americans wouldn't know about it. The result Shivas suggested could be exactly the arms race dynamics the New START treaty was intended to prevent. The U.S. and Russia will, he said, will likely now increase spending on their nuclear arms. We might not. We're going bankrupt unless we can get a new deal put, which is not what anyone, Russia included, would logically want. Such a gloomy prognosis makes Hill's warning that Putin was attempting to provoke rifts within the U.S. opinion and the more discerning unity extraordinarily important to this moment on the domestic front because it determines our own ability to respond, Hill said. Putin is looking for any cracks. We need to be united as Americans and resist the temptation to play silly politics over this. Alright, so is Putin dividing our country? Well, maybe, if you look at the part where he got 70 million Trumpers basically saying, look, why are we in this war? I don't understand why. My sister Teddy doesn't understand why. My cousin Dinky says there's nothing we can do about it. Only vote. Yeah. And the rest of us here, other people. Now, I'm not a Trumper. I'm not a Bidenite. I'm not in neither party, like I said. But it just makes weird questions. I would be questioning the motives of the government. Not that I'm a conspiracist, but this is my own opinion. It ain't misinformation. That I would like to know why we're at war. Is democracy really at threat? Or is it something else? That's the question. No one will know until it's too late. And if China gets involved, we're really screwed. So I think it would be best if Congress and the House of Representatives backpedaled and took the reins. Otherwise, we're all going to be in trouble. That's what I think. Yeah, so think about it, chew on it. Please keep prepping, because this is getting worse and worse by the day, and I lose sleep over all this. So, with that said, think about it. Get your water, your food, and your potassium iodide in check, and maybe a crank radio. Otherwise, check out my Prepping on a Budget. I will update that later today or tomorrow. In the meantime, Thanks for watching, everyone. Please add and subscribe. Please post comments, leave feedback, suggestion, hit the like, subscribe button. Show some fun for your family, including your dogs, your cats, your bunnies, your service dogs, your service bunnies. Hit the bell notification, thumbs up button, subscribe button. Keep the comments nice. That's all we ask. Thank you and God bless you in everything you do.